the pillow jacket, or Pilar jacket by Maison Fauve. So yeah, it has the top stitch darts along here. I did do some additional top stitching down the front. Yeah, but it's a denim style jacket. I made it in a cotton twill, one of our 8-ounce cotton twills. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the sew along. Okay, so I'm gonna top stitch. So I've sewn those seams and then I've overlocked down there, so that's those two pieces together. Okay, and then I've pressed it towards the yoke side, which is this piece here. Pressed it towards there, and then we want to top stitch on from the right side down the edge of that seam. So to get the colour I wanted to match my buttons I've chosen, I decided to get the right colour, I'm going to use some Gutermann Sew All thread, a general sewing thread, but I'm going to put 2 threads through the needle, so as a double thread, and sew it in that way, so that way I can get the colour I want on the for the top stitch. So I'm going to top stitch those, and then I'll be back. Okay, so that's that piece top stitched. So it just, there we go. So just lengthen the stitch slightly, and then that's it, neatened on the other side. Okay, so I've done one side, but no inset pockets in is quite a bit of a fiddle. But basically, so we've top stitched down this side. We've attached the pockets, stitched the pockets in between those 2 gaps, between the gaps there, the pocket lining between the gaps, and we've stitched the other pocket pieces all the way down. Then we want to press that over with the seam allowance towards that way, and then press this so the seam allowance goes towards the this piece, the small piece, which is the front yoke, this small piece down the middle. Okay, so it's like that on the back. Let me show you that because it gets quite complicated. On the back, and then it's like that on the front. Okay, and then it wants you to top stitch down that front edge. Okay, about 1/2 centimetre down there. Okay, then when we've done that, it wants us to join these 2 pieces together. So you line it up at the top there. Turn it over the other way, I think. Easier. See what I'm doing. So pin there. And the top. And there. Pin around the pocket bag and the lining together, like so. And then there. I'll show you in a minute so you can see a bit clearer what I've done. One up there. Pins. And there. Now, this bottom piece need to get quite accurate along your other seam. So, right, to there. Okay. So we need to stitch down this side here, down to where we get to the notch there, and then across. So what I'll do is, it's easier to do is if you draw a line just to keep yourself straight along where that notch is. So we'll just draw a line in with a heat erasable pen. That'll keep us more on the straight and narrow, so to speak. So I'll show you what I've done there. So we're going to stitch down here till we get to that notch with our centimetre seam allowance down to there. Then when we get to there, we're going to stitch across there where I've drawn that red line, and then we're going to stitch down there and across to here. Now, to line it up with your other seam, I then suggest you turn it over and stitch this seam from there up to there from this side, so that you can see where your previous stitching is for your seam, because you want to get that seam at the bottom lined up with your other seam. Okay, so you want to get that lined up from where you've stitched that one on previously, just so that it, just so that you don't have just it lines up and you don't have lots of sort of seams showing. Okay, and then it wants you to top stitch the bottom piece there and then down the top to where your pocket edge is there. So I'll do that next, and then I think we're on to the yoke and the pleats on the yoke pocket. So I've done one, I'll show you what I've done with the other one. So I've sewn that together all the way around, centimetre seam allowance, okay, and then I've graded the seam. So the interface piece, I've graded one piece, cut away the seam allowance slightly more and left the other piece longer. Okay, so I've just graded, cut some off one of the seam allowances and then just clipped into the corners here. Okay, so that just means that so that when you turn it out, turn it through, you have to press out the corners a wee bit, but then when you've got it pressed, it means that you've got a slightly softer edge where it all along here, rather than having two layers in one place. It just gives it a you don't get such a ridge showing on your piece when it's turned out. Okay, so I'm going to give that a press and then top stitch round, and then it says to do your buttonholes on your flat pockets once it's all attached. But I think that'll be more difficult with a buttonhole foot to do it that way, so I'm going to do the buttonholes now. So I shall just mark the placement in the centre, fairly close to here, and then so I'll do that now. Let me show you. So I'll measure across, move that the right way. So it's so it's 11 and a half, so it's 5 and it says 12 actually, so let's go for 6 in the middle there. Okay, so that should be the centre. Always check by folding it actually. Yeah, here we go, so that's the centre. So go in the middle there, and then we'll go buttonhole wants to start about a centimetre up, so that's there. Okay, so that's where I'll start my buttonhole. Okay, that I've marked in there. So I'm going to press this one, top stitch it. I'll sew those buttonholes before I attach it. Otherwise, when you've got it all attached onto your jacket and your yoke piece and everything, you'll once you've got all the other pocket underside bit, that's going to attach there like so. But then it's going to be difficult to sew that buttonhole once it's all attached. So I'm going to do those first now. Okay, and I'll top stitch this one. Okay, and then we'll carry on tomorrow and do the other side pockets, because it's getting quite late now. It's getting dark outside. So we'll carry on doing the rest of the pockets tomorrow and the back. Okay. Okay, so apologies, we had to I still haven't got the camera right. I'll crouch down. Apologies. I had to finish suddenly yesterday, but we'll carry on with the sew along now. So before I start, so the sew along we're doing, as I said before, is the Maison for Pilar jacket. I'll go over where we've got up to. Then I'll just say what I'm wearing today. So this is the chalk and notch fringe dress. So it's just, I did the version, you can get a just a placket front without the buttons, but I decided to use the buttons, and then I've just got, it's just the tab on the fold up sleeve, and I did the tie in the back. So yeah, and it's got like a shirt hemline, but obviously the camera's not the right angle to show you that in a moment. So I'll angle the camera down and then I'll show you where we've got to from yesterday. So we'll just angle this down a wee bit so you can hopefully get a better picture of what we're doing today and be a bit clearer. Right. Okay, so far we have attached the front yoke, piece 12 to piece 11, which is the middle front like so, which is those pieces stitched together there. So we stitched the seam, overlocked it, pressed it towards the front yoke piece, the smaller piece, and then top stitched down the front. And next it wants us to overlock down that front edge there, and also down that side piece of the front side, piece 13. So down that side piece there. Okay. So let me show you on this one. And then also we need to overlock around piece 15, which is the pocket bag piece, these pieces. So you'll have two fabric pieces, two of the outer fabric and two lining pieces. Okay, so I want you to overlock around all the edges of those, all sides of those. So that's my lining piece, and that's my pocket bag of the main fabric. So then it wants you to line these up. So you've got little notches, so you just need to make sure, if you do lose your notches when you overlock, just get the pattern piece and just remark them in. Okay, so just mark them in so you've got your notches on your pattern pieces. I can just about see them still on my outer fabric, but it was difficult to see them on my lining fabric, so I've just remarked them in there. So it wants you to match them up to the notches on here, so that one there. So your lining fabric, I'll show you in a second, just let me pin them in place, and that one goes there. Oh, come here. Between. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, and then this one lines up to here. Pin that in place. And this one here. And that one there. Okay, and then it wants us to, so on this piece, this one here, we need to stitch down the whole seam, so stitch down the whole length of that, of the pocket edge there. But on this one, where it's got your lining piece, it just wants you to stitch from that top notch there down to the lower notch there. Okay, so from, well, you can see I've done a ribbon, I put a pin in the place so I know where to stop. So from that notch there down to that notch there on the lining piece, whereas on this piece it wants you to stitch all the way down that side. Okay, so we'll do that next on both pieces. I've lined these ones up ready, so we'll do that on both pieces, and then we'll press them over, and we need to do a bit of top stitching on one of those. So I'll do that first, and then I'll come back and show you what we'll do next. Okay, so the other thing I decided to do was do some bar tacks just where the pocket opening is. So just here at the top and also at the bottom there, just to reinforce where that pocket opening is, just because that will get a lot of tugging and wear. So I decided to put those in. So the next bit to do now is to do the pleats on the, which are external pleats onto the yoke of the Pilar jacket. So let's see if the yellow works on here. So I'm just going to mark the pleats on, just line my pattern piece up. So I'm just using some carbon paper, which I've got here. Okay, so this is just some yellow carbon paper. I'm going to put that face down onto the reverse side of my yoke piece. Level up where the pattern is here. Just put a couple of pins in to keep it in place. One down the corner. One there. That should be enough. Okay, and then I'll get my tracing wheel, which I'll put down somewhere. There it is. So I'm just going to get my tracing wheel, and then I'm going to draw, just put the tracing wheel along the stitch lines of the pleats. So just up there like so, and then that one there. And then these two. So that one there. One there, and then lastly that one along there. Okay, so then I can take this off, and hopefully the yellow is enough to have marked on there. Yay, there we go. So then you've got your marks slightly drawn, you can see there, onto the fabric. And actually they've have got a line printed through to that, so that's quite good. So, and I also, on the pattern, I also notched the where the dart, the tops of the darts there, dart legs. Okay, so you want to pleat it so the opposite way round to what you normally do, really. So you want to line up those notches at the top. They're tiny little pleats, and then find the point of the dart. I think I might put a pin in before I, there. Like so, and then just line those up that way along. Too wide on that one. So I'm just lining up the two lines that I've drawn either side. Just check they're okay on the underside, yeah. Well, it does actually show through to this side, so that does make it easier. There we go, that one. And that one. Okay, so that's one done. So I'm going to stitch that first, and then we'll pin the others. Well, I might pin the others. I'll do this one along, but I probably will have to release those pins before I do the middle one. Otherwise it'll just be pins galore. So that one in there, and find the point there. Point there, and then find, line your lines up, so from one side, and then look to see if you're on the line the other side. I'm a bit way off there, too big a point. There we go. And another one there. So line up that side and with that side, and pin it. Okay. So I can just about see my lines there. I'm going to draw that, but I might, actually they're quite difficult to see, so I think I might just draw that in with a heat erasable pen, which I think will be alright on this fabric. So just gently, just along there, just like so. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing with that one, just so I can see a bit easier where I'm stitching. That one. And then we've got the one in the middle, but I'll do that one in the middle in a minute. Okay, so I pinned those in place. I'll do the one in the middle shortly. So yeah, okay, so I'll go and stitch those, and then I'll show you pinning the one in the middle, and then we'll do the other, and then I'll need to do the other side as well. So it asks you to stitch them and then top stitch, I think, the darts, and I don't know, yeah, stitch the right side of the garment. You will therefore have transparent. Sew your darts and neckline to the tip of the dart on the right side of the fabric, but instead of ending with empty stitches, you end the tip of your dart with front back stitches that you will have shortened. Okay, so yeah, it wants us to do that with a top stitch. Yeah, so it wants us to do that with a top stitch thread. So I'm going to go and do that. Okay, so the end of the dart, you can either tie them off to the back, or if your machine does a single stitch where it stitches in one place, then you can do that as well. So I'll stitch those two, then I'll pin out the middle one, stitch that, and I'll show you where we're at. So that's the pleats done in the yoke pieces. So you just need to it asks you to press the pleats upwards, so you just need to think about which way you're sewing your pleats, because you want the top stitch one to be the one where you pressed it upwards. Okay, so that one I've top stitched, you can see that side, and that one I've top stitched going the other way. Okay, because obviously they both go upwards, pressed upwards. Okay, so those are those pieces there. So then the next piece we need to do the ends, I just knotted them with a needle, threaded the thread into the needle, hand stitch needle, pulled it through to the wrong side, and then I just caught a couple of the stitches up into, threaded it up into there just to neaten it off. So that's those. Next it wants you to put the two pocket pieces together, so right sides together, the pocket flaps. So put the right sides together, so you should have one interfaced one and one non-interfaced. It may have asked you to interface them all, but I've decided just to do, my fabric's fairly weighty, so I decided to just interface one. So one interfaced and one non-interfaced I've done on the pockets. I'm going to stitch around there, 1 centimetre seam allowance, and I'm going to clip the curves, turn it in the right way, and then top stitch, press it, and then top stitch round. Okay. Okay, so we've show you on this one. We've stitched around the top there, Okay, so we've stitched around there, and then in order to we need to turn that over to the other side. Okay, so what we need to do is to clip into the corner, diagonally into the corner towards your stitching. So there and there, quite in there. There we go. So you're going to slip it like that, just into those corners. Okay, and then that way you can fold it over to the right side, turn those corners up and press that out. Okay, so we just need to give that a press. Okay, so that's all about with it gone round like so. Okay, so we'll press that, and then once we've pressed it, we just need to top stitch around. Okay, which I've done on that one. Okay, then you need to attach your pocket piece onto here. Secure that in place. Now it tells you here just to attach it up here at the top, but actually and then it wants you to later on, when you've attached the yoke, then tack round the pocket and then top stitch it in place. But actually I'm going to do that now because I think it will be easier than when we've got the this piece attached. Yeah, because it's not going to involve stitching on there, so that's fine. So I'm going to do that now. So it wants us to just hand tack around here, or you could do it on a long stitch on your machine, which I may well do actually, and then you can always pull that tacking stitch out. You can use a contrasting thread, it says, to make things easier so that you can see, but I think I'll quite clearly be able to see, so I'm going to put that there like so. Okay, and I'm going to go to my machine, and just with a long stitch I'm going to stitch around from this side up so I can see where the edge of my pocket is. I'm going to stitch all the way around here, okay, and up to the top there, and I'll do that on both of them, and then I'll using that stitch that we've attached, we'll be able to then see from this side. We can turn it over and then we can top stitch around using that basted stitch as a guide round to top stitch around there, and it wants you to do 2 layers of top stitching around there, one inside the other. So I'll do that next, and then we'll attach, then I'm going to attach the yoke pieces there like so. Okay, so that's the way around I'm going to do it. So I'll do that and then I'll come back and show you the next piece. Oops. Okay, so we've stitched that along there, okay, and now we just need to, so I'm just looking why I've got a piece over there, but it's from my other video stand. Right, okay, so I just need to put these two together now at the shoulder seam, so right sides together, like so. Like that. And this one. Side. So we're going to stitch those seams along the top there, and there, and then we're going to overlock the edges and press them which way? Towards the back, that's it, towards the back, and so a top stitch, yeah. So we're going to stitch those, we're going to overlock it, we're going to press the seam allowance towards the back and then top stitch like we did just now. Okay, and then we're on to the collar, I believe. So the collar's next. Okay, so that's both. I just put the buttons on there to see what it looked like. So that's both the front pieces assembled together now. So then we just need to put those to one side and then do the back pieces. So done that. We want the back yoke and the back piece. So I'm doing the one without the fold. As I say, I've made the one with the fold before, and it's very easy to use. Sorry about the, I got spilt on my pattern there. I'll repair that. Right. To one side. Repair that. Right. Okay. So this is my pattern piece for the back. And this is the yoke. Take all the pins out. I've done that already, didn't I? Right. Anyway. Take those out. It'll take a minute. There we go. Right. So it's just for this piece, it's just right sides together along the top edge there. So we'll pin that in place. So right sides facing. Pin that side. Line it up this side. The centre. Notches along there to line up, so line that there. So I'm going to stitch my centimetre seam allowance, then I'm going to overlock the edge of that, and then I'm going to press the seam upwards, I suspect. Yeah, iron it upwards. So then I'm going to iron that seam so that it's facing upwards. The seams face underneath seams facing upwards towards the yoke piece here, and then I'm going to top stitch along there. So we'll do that, and then we're going to join it together at the shoulder seams. Okay, so we've put the shoulder seams together and top stitched those. Okay, in place. We'll put that to one side. Next, it wants us to stitch the two layers of the collar together. Now I decided to do my under collar piece in the same as my lining fabric, just to give it a little pop of colour, a little bit of difference. So because it was a cotton, I did decide to interface that. If it was this fabric, I'd probably use the same on both. I probably would have just interfaced the top collar, but I have done both as I used a lighter weight for the under collar. So I'm going to pin those together, and then we're going to stitch all the way around the outer edge, but not this lower edge. So we're just going to stitch all the way around down the side and all the way around the top. When I'll pin, I'll show you. Ooh, get the pins out. Fingers and thumbs today. Right, there we go. There. And there. Okay, so then we're going to stitch up this side around the top edge of the collar. So that's the bottom edge of the collar there, which is going to fix to the collar of the jacket. We're going to sew up there, around, down and down to there. Okay, then we're going to clip the corners. So we just snip into along where our edge of our stitching is, and then turn it in the right way, and then top stitch round, and then we'll join it to the jacket. Okay, so that's the collar of the jacket stitched round. Okay, you just check round on the other side just to make sure you haven't got any sort of puckers or tucks within that neck allowance, because now would be the time to just adjust those, unpick that bit and do those. I had one in there, so I've just unpicked that and sorted that out. So that's there. Now next we want to do the facing, which we then apply to the jacket, to the inside of the jacket. So we want to stitch you've got your two front facings and then your back neck facing here. So right sides of fabric together, just join them there at the shoulder seam. Just go over slightly. Sit there. And that one. And then that one. So, okay, so then we're just going to stitch those at the 1 centimetre seam allowance and press the seams open, and then we'll fix it to the jacket. Okay, so I'd say about the top stitching and how I use the two sew-all threads on my machine. So these are them spreaded up, each on 2 different spools. Threaded up through, and then they just join together to go down through here, and then threaded just as one thread right through to the end down here. Okay, so then it just gets threaded through to the end. So then that's 2 stitches on the top, and then the bobbin is just wound with a single thread. So then I'll just narrow it down so you can see, hopefully see my seam a bit better. Just tighten that up so I don't wiggle about. Okay, so then I just get my foot centered where I can generally see, which I can't see very well now. Oh, excuse me. Right, so just centered there, and then you just follow along that stitch. So just do a couple. If you just back stitch within the seam allowance, then it doesn't show on your main stitch, and then just stitch along. So just keeping your eye and following. So I'm just watching here so that I keep that bit of the foot even all the way along. I've lengthened my stitch length to about 3.5, anything between a 3.5. Just you're get a neater top stitch if you just lengthen the stitch a wee bit. And just go through. Just a couple of back stitches. Okay, and then that's the if you can see that, I've got it the wrong way round here. That's the top stitching along. Okay, so now we'll go and join the shoulder seams together. Jumbly mess, right. Okay, so I've top stitched around the collar. Okay. So because my you should do it really with any collar, but particularly if you've got a different coloured lining that I put on the under collar, just make sure you've got it, it's just the collar, this edge is just slightly rolled to the wrong side. So from the wrong side, the underside, you can slightly see the edge of the top collar, so that when you turn it around that way, you can only see the top collar. Okay. So next we're going to pin the collar to the jacket. So you want the right side of your jacket facing up and the right side of your collar facing up. And we join your notches at the centre back. Check these ones for now. And then you've got a notch along here somewhere. That's it there on your collar, which will join at your shoulder seam. There. I find that one there, joins at that shoulder seam there. And then the end of your collar joins at the notch in your, there's a little notch there in the jacket, and your shoulder, your collar edge joins up with that end there. Yeah, okay. And then we can fold the rest in. So again, making sure your pleats are going in the right direction when you pin them on, that they are facing upwards, the pleats on your yoke for your jacket. Oh, there's quite a few layers to pin on some of these. So I usually pin it on the little darts just so that you can make sure that they stay in that direction when you sew them. So I've just pinned into there. Oh, so there's quite a few layers. Right, okay, just put another one there. Keep that lined up correctly. Okay. That one in there. Bit of easing on this bit here. So we've just got to ease this bit in. So as you look at that, you see you've got more that side than you have that side. So to ease it in, if you just turn it the curved way that it wants to go, like that, put one in the centre, like so, turn it, put one in the centre again, just there, centre again. Then that's evenly distributed, that ease throughout there. Okay, so we'll do it again on this side. So just curve it round, one in the centre, curve it round again like that, put one in the centre, round again like that, and then put one in the centre. And then this side again, so the edge of your collar lines up with a little notch by that front lapel there. And centre front seam, please, so one joins up there. And again, making sure your pleats are going upwards, 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 upwards. One in there. One in there. One in there. And then one in there. Okay, so I'm just going to stitch that round. It says with just a 0.5 centimetre seam allowance, because then we're going to attach the facing pieces onto that next. Okay, so I'll go and stitch that first, show you what we've done, and then we'll piece the facing pieces together. Okay, so we've stitched that together, press the seams open on there, so that's all the way around, so that's now like that. And it also, you need to neaten the edge of your fabric all around the outside of the facing. So I've done it with an overlocker, but you could do it with a zigzag on your machine, or you could bind the edge of it if you wanted to, because that will be exposed inside. So you need to neaten it in some way. So now we're going to fix it onto the jacket. So the shoulder seam of the facing will join with the shoulder seam on your jacket. Can get difficult to pin now if we've got heavier weight fabric, which you've got a lot of layers to get through. And again, that one is, you should see the little notches there as well on your collar, but that lines up with the shoulder seam on your jacket. ease to get through on mine. Just going to mark that centre piece. A bit of easing to do on mine. And mark that centre with my facing. Pin that back onto the shoulder seam. Where's he gone? Where's he gone? Where's he gone? Here he is. Pin that back onto there. Okay, line that centre up. And we just got to ride that around, so easing that in. Few pins in, just so that easing is in evenly. So I've got a few pins in here because I've got a bit of easing in to do. That one. Get round to the front. Then round at the front, this facing will line up with the corner of the front of your jacket. Okay, so it lines along that front edge down there. Okay, let's pin that down that end as well. Oh, run out of pins on you. Go over there, over there. Okay, so let's get that straight edge pinned in first. Down there. Then we can come back to this bit here where we want to get this pinned onto the collar. Again, there's a bit of easing to do, so just bend that round slightly. One. There we go. Right, that's one in there. Make sure it stays in place so you've got your ease, you know, your ease evenly distributed. So we'll do the same on the other side. And that corner piece there in place. Pin that corner edge down there. Okay, sit it evenly. Piece in the middle. And you can do again either side. More pins in between, just to make sure it sits all nice and evenly distributed. This bit at the top, and then again around this collar, as I say, you've got quite a bit of easing to do, so it's just a matter of bending it round like that, getting the centre piece first in place like so, and then getting the centre piece again, that bit that you're doing, and then again here, there, put the one in there, again bend it in the centre, in place. I'll bulk here, so I might put quite a few pins in. Maybe I'll put one more in there. Make sure that stays where I want it when I stitch it. Right, okay. So now we're going to stitch right from the bottom edge here within our seam allowance right up front here, around the collar edge, right to the other side, and then down that centre front piece. Okay, so we're going to stitch that in place. The other thing is, it might be an idea just to pin your, at the moment, pin your pockets out of the way. You might find they flap and get in the way. We will be fixing those into the when we turn it over, we will be fixing those in, but for the moment we'll keep those out of the way. So I'm going to go and stitch that all the way round, and then I'm going to clip the corners, notch into all wherever there's a curve around this neckline, press it all over well. It needs a really good press over to the other side before we top stitch that to the other side. Hi, good morning. So we're going to carry on with the sew along for the Pilar jacket. Maison Fauve Pilar jacket. So we've got to sew in those front pieces together, and then we had put the pleats. Let's got them pinned together. We put the pleats and press them upwards. So it's the pleats. The darts or external darts go on the outside, top stitched and then pressed upwards. So we've done those. We put the little pocket flaps together, clipped, graded and clipped the seams, and then pressed them, turned them the right way out and top stitched around the edge. And I also decided to do my buttonholes at this point, although it doesn't say to do them till later, but it'll be easier when you've got this piece on its own, and when it's all attached you'll have more ridges to get your button foot over. So I decided to do mine now. So next we just need to pin these towards onto the we're going to pin the button pocket flap onto the top yoke of the front of the jacket. So I'll just put the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. Just adjust this, hold tight. There we go. Right, so we've got your jacket yoke piece here. Okay, and then we're going to get the right side of your pocket flap and fold that down between on your yoke piece. You'll have two little notches just here either side on there. So right sides together, so your top stitch darts are upwards because they're on the right side, and then the top stitch part of your pocket flap goes down onto your yoke front between those notches. So we'll just pin that in place. On there, and then that one there. I should have said actually, so what I'm wearing today, you could see the picture before, sorry I forgot to show you, is the ruby top, and you can also do in a dress. It's a pattern by Tessuti Patterns. So anyway, back to the sew along. That's that bit done, pinned on there. And then this piece here, we want to you'll need to overlock all around the outside edges of your pocket lining piece. So overlock or neaten the edge, however you're going to do it, zigzag on your machine, or press it under all the way around that edge there, and also around the outside edges along the bottom and up that side there of your what do they call this, chest pocket facing, this one. So then we're going to put that right sides together. So we want the right side up of your jacket front that we've put together with the pockets in, and then the right side of this piece is going to go down onto there to fit that sort of cut out shape there. I'm going to pin that in place. Once I've got it in the right place, pin that on there. And pin that on there. Okay, so we've got those pinned ready, and I've done the other side as well. So then where are we up to? So we're going to baste stitch these in place. The pocket, I'm going to baste stitch along here to keep that pocket flap in place on both those yoke pieces, and then we're going to stitch this piece here, and yeah, it does. So we're going to stitch on this piece here. We're going to go from the top here down, along and up. Okay, so let's draw that on so you can see it a bit easier. Let's can't find a ruler. So we're going to go down here and then along. Let's mark it with a heat erasable pen roughly so you can see where I'm trying to detail to. So that's where we're going to stitch. You're going to go down, along and up this side, okay, on both those pieces. So I'll do that next, and then we'll fix the pocket lining to the jacket. So before I turn it out, I'll just show you what I've done. So I've clipped the corners at the points there, and then I've graded my seam all the way around just so that it's a bit less bulky. So I've just cut one seam down slightly more than the other and trim the corners. Okay, so then we just turn it out. Like that. And just poke the corners out with a tool just to get them nice and carefully, just so that we don't go through. Okay, just like so, and I'm going to give that a good press all the way around, and then I'm going to top stitch around the outer edge of the collar. Okay, so I'll just do that and then we'll attach it. Okay, so I've top stitched down both of those sides. Okay, and I've drawn on them, which I'll explain to you to do my markings I want to do. So I've used the button placement guide that you get in the pattern. Okay, just place that along the right side of my centre front piece there, my button placket, and then I've just marked where the relevant, for my size, where the relevant buttonholes are going to go. Then I've just measured to make sure where I want them to sit and where I want them to start, and then I've decided, so I've got this which is a purchase jacket. It's got a decorative stitch down the centre front denim type jacket there, so I'm going to do the same on this. So I've drawn in, I've marked next to where next to the buttonholes where it sits, and then I've drawn in between, measured in between on the opposite side, and then drawn them in, and then I've mirrored the image over on the other side. So I'm going to go and stitch those and then stitch my buttonholes in place, and then we'll come back and do the sides, join the side seams together. So we've got the collar stitched in and all pressed out. Then it wants you to put the thread there. So then it wants you to stitch. I've interpreted it that it wants you to stitch from shoulder to shoulder, stitching your facing to the head, to the seam allowance. So it's like an understitch really. So from there to there, just to the shoulder seams, and then it wants you to top stitch your front where your button placement is going to go. Now it says to do also you need to attach your pocket. Let me show you. So your pocket piece, your lower pocket piece, it wants you to attach that underneath inside there. Okay, so let me just show that a bit clearer. So this is your pocket piece that you've done. That will naturally fold towards the front and that will tuck underneath there. Okay, so that secures that in place. So we just pin that back up. And then it says the stitcher line, it says nearly 4 centimetres. So I've done 4 centimetres. So that's going from the bottom to the top there. But I'm also going to stitch around this edge here and across the top of the collar there, just to reinforce that collar edge there, and then down. And I'm going to do that on both sides, and then I'm going to mark out the buttonholes, and then I'm going to do a bit of a decorative zigzag top stitch along here, as that's something I've got on another jacket and I think will fit in quite nicely with the exposed dart sort of top stitching in the shape there. So I'm going to stitch these in place, and then we'll measure out the buttonholes. Okay, so we've what I've done, I'll show you where I've just done a basting stitch all the way, so just a long stitch on your machine so it's easy to take out, and I've just followed along that line around the pocket from that side of my fabric, and then when you turn it round, you've got a stitch you can see in order to follow for your top stitch. So then I've just top stitched that round on both sides. So I've top stitched around there following the basting stitch, and then just top stitched round inside that as well. Okay, and then I'll show you how we'll attach the yoke. So then we'll attach the yoke piece. Once we've top stitched around there, we attach the yoke piece like so, right sides together, stitch that in place, then turn it up that way, overlock the seam allowance, turn it up that way, and then top stitch along the top, which is what I've done here. Okay, so then that's all secured, that in place. So that's the front of the jacket sorted. So then it'll be on to the back of the jacket. So I'll just finish this side and then we'll go on to the back of the jacket. So that's my button placket done. So I've sewn my buttonholes in. Unfortunately that one's over a bit slightly. I must have just not quite started at the right point, so that's annoying, but never mind, it's in. I'm not going to try and undo a buttonhole on this fabric because it will fray like anything. It'll just destroy the fabric. So that's my buttonholes there, and I've done this pattern, as I say, that I wanted to do, this top stitching down, mirrored it on that side, so that's all ready for the buttons to go on when I'm ready to finish that. So now it's just stitching the side seams together. So I've pinned those in place. Let's just turn it in the wrong way, and then just pin your side seams together, this side seam and then that side seam. I'm going to stitch those centimetre seam allowance, and then overlock it or neaten your edge, whether you're binding it or zigzagging it with your sewing machine, and then press it towards the back piece, but we don't top stitch those. So I'm going to do that. And then that's probably it for this evening. I will do some, probably I'm away for a few days, so next it'll be on Friday, but hopefully then we'll finish off. We'll do the sleeves, the cuffs, and the bottom cuff, whatever they call it. I can't think what they call it now. They call it the waistband. Yeah, so it's the bottom cuff, waistband cuff that goes around the bottom of the jacket. So I'm going to sew these seams, and then that's it for this evening. So we'll carry on Friday. Okay, thanks then. Okay, so go that way, it's a bit easier. Right, so we've sewn the waistband bit to the bottom of the jacket. We've lined up the corner there, so now we want to turn that under like so. Just get those threads in and pin that in place like that. then just pin in place all along. I've done the other side, I'll show you in a minute. And then I tend to tack it in place so that I can ensure that I'm going to catch this, because we're going to stitch from the top side here. And I just want to ensure that we're going to catch this underneath edge in place for it to be nice and neat. So I'm just going to pin that all in place first, like so. Just a little bit at a time. A bit more in there. And then here. So just tuck it under like so. Pin that in place. So tuck it under. Just get the edge. Pin that in place. So you're just touching, you're just overlapping where your seam edge is. So there's your seam edge, and you're literally just folding it up to tuck over there and then pinning it in place. Oops. Okay, so then it looks like that on the other side where you've pinned it. Okay. And then I tend to just tack it in place all the way along. So I tack it, so from this side, I'll show you how I do it. So this side, I'm going to put it in through this side, just catching the very edge of this folded over piece there. Okay, so I'm just going to catch the very edge there of the folded piece under there. And then I want to catch the needle just into the ditch of the seam. You see where my needle is? I can't see on there if I can see it. There, yeah. So just coming up through the ditch of the seam there, and then back down into the ditch of the seam so that it catches just along the edge the other side. Okay, so if you do that all the way along, then it means you're just catching in the edge of the stitching there along the edge of the jacket, so just the very edge, and then into the ditch, as it were, of the seam along there. And that way, then when we top stitch all around, it wants you to top stitch just sort of 1/8 of an inch onto this waistband piece, and it asks you to stitch along there and then down there and down there, and that's it. But I'm actually going to stitch along that bottom piece as well, because I think it will look nicer rather than just finishing there. So I'm going to stitch all the way around there, so all the way around from one edge right the way around to the other. So I'll finish off tacking here, top stitch that, and then next we're going to do the little what do they call them, tabs, yeah, belt plackets, these little pieces here. Okay, so we'll do those next. I'll top stitch this first. Okay, so we've stitched the waistband piece, both ends, and turned them out and pressed them. Okay, so then we want to attach the waistband to the jacket. So you've got some notches along the side here. So the first notch that you've got along joins with the seam with your pocket piece at the front. So that one lines up with there. Then the next notch along lines up with your side seam. I'll show you when I've pinned it all. That one lines up with the side seam. And then we'll start from the other end. So your notch nearest to the end, first one, lines up with your side seam, with your front seam with the pocket on it, pocket in the seam. That one lines up with there, and then next notch along again lines up with the side seam. And then you can just even it out so that you've got the centre in the centre. And there. And there. And there. Just pin it all in place. And then your edge piece here joins onto here. So you just need to get the point seam bit there lined up with the edge of your jacket waistline. I'll pin that in place. Just a couple more along there. That one. Let's put one more in there to hold that all in place. I can stitch it, and then along the other side. And there. And then line that up. So the corner there needs to line up with the end of your waistband piece. Pin that in place. Up through the other side, that's it. A bit easing to do on that one. There we go. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to stitch all the way along there. So I'm going to stitch from the point there all the way along, right to the other side, right to the other end, okay, all the way along there, and then we'll turn that over and press it to the other side. Actually, it's telling me to do that the other way around. I don't want to do it the other way around. So on the instructions, it is telling me to do it the other way around, to pin it to the wrong side and then turn it over and then top stitch along there. But I'm going to do it this way round and pin it over there. So I'll show you when I've done it. You can do it either way. I just prefer it for neatness, that that's all tucked in under, and then I can turn the seam allowance that way and top stitch that. So yeah, I'll do that next and then I'll show you what we do. Okay, so we've sewed, let's just get the jacket. So we've sewed, top stitched all around that lower edge. So I did right around the bottom. Okay, so we top stitched all around there. Now next it wants you to do the tabs, so these little pieces here. Okay, so we've just put right sides together and then sew, you've interfaced one half of it, and then just sew around centimetre seam allowance around the edges there. I'll show you that side, you should be able to see it easier. Okay, so then I'm just going to trim those edges down, just so there's not quite so much on the inside. So about half, trim them to about half, and then I'm going to trim along the top piece and the corners like so. Okay, so then I've trimmed along the top here and down there so that we can get the points nicely. And then it just wants you to turn it in the right way. So turn it in right side out. So just push it through. Just get something to poke it through. There we go, right side out. Let's grab a point turner and just ease those corners out out so you get nice points and it's even. Just gently do the centre point. Oh. That's it, there we go. All right, and then give that a press. Okay, that piece there, give that a press, and then you just need to top stitch around all the corners and overlock the edge. Okay, and then it asks you to do the buttonhole and place it onto the, and then stitch it onto the jacket piece. But I'm going to do the sleeves next, because then we're going to have another buttonhole to do on the cuff, and rather than change my button foot now and just do these and then put it on again later to do the cuff buttonhole, I'll do the sleeve and then do it all in one. Okay, so put that to one side, I'll top stitch that in a minute. Okay, so the sleeve pieces we've got here. So we've got the backs, they call it a back sleeve and a front sleeve. Some patterns call it an under sleeve and a top sleeve. So we'll take those pattern pieces off. Just make sure I've done my notches. Yes, I have. And that one. Okay, so move those to one side over there. Okay, so then we want to just move those two out of the way. Okay, so then we want to sew these two long side pieces here together. So you've got a notch at the top to line up. There. That way round, don't I? Notch at the top to line up there, and then this piece here. So we pin all that in place along there. So I'll show you in a minute how we've got those lined up. So that's the sleeve, right sides together. Okay, pinned down that seam there with the placket, the sleeve placket piece on there. So we'll do that for both, and then we're going to stitch down this seam allowance to, just down to here. So we're going to stitch just down to here, okay, and finish here, back stitch there, because then we're going to fold this placket piece over to neaten that at the bottom. Okay, so we're just going to stitch from here right the way to the top here, do that on both the sleeves, and then I'll show you how we pin over and do the little fold the little sleeve placket piece at the bottom. Okay, and then we'll do the cuff and put that all together, and then we'll sew the buttonholes on them all. Okay. Okay, so I did forget to mention that we needed to do the side seam, the under seam of the sleeve. So that's the other seam that you've got left. So just join right sides together, okay, of your sleeve pieces down the remaining seam, centimetre seam allowance, stitch to the end, then overlock it, and then press the seam allowance towards the back of the sleeve, okay, and then, which I've done there. Okay, so I pressed it towards the back of the sleeve there. Okay, so then it wants you to join the cuff. So we've sewn around the edges of the cuff. I've trimmed down the seam allowances and then just clipped off the corners at the point and the corner there. And then we can turn that in the right way, pressing out the points with your point turner. So just pressing out the points there, just gently easing them out so they're nice and square. That's it, like so. And the point there. sort of there. Okay, and give that a nice press. Okay, and then we want to, so that's for that one, then we want to fix it to the sleeve. Okay, so then we're going to join it to the sleeve. So the pointed end of your cuff goes on the upper piece of your pocket flap. Okay, so that's the bit that's going to piece over the other one, so you see that point. Okay, so right sides together. I've done it, as I say, I've got the lining on one side because I decided to do a contrast fabric on the other side of my cuff. So you just want right sides together so that when you fold it out, it's like that, and then I will have the lining underneath. So just pin it round, so match the edge of your point piece there with your seam. Just pin it all the way round. You'll have a notch in your pattern piece here, so you'll have a notch in your cuff that joins up with this last seam that you've just sewn, the undersleeve seam. Okay, will join up with there, and then obviously the edges join up with the end of the sleeve. Did have a bit of easing on mine to ease in, so I'll have to just put a couple more pins in there, like so. Okay, so I'm going to stitch those in place, and then we'll do the top stitching around the bottom of the cuff. Then we can do the buttonholes and the buttonholes on the tabs and fix that to the waistband and put the sleeves in, and then sew our buttons on, and I believe we're done. So I'll probably have to do that tomorrow now, but yeah, so I'll just finish this sleeve, sew these cuffs on, and then I'll show you. We'll top stitch it much the same as we did the tacking it in place, the same as we did on the, so I'm trying to show you the waistband, it's not on the screen, as we did on the waistband piece. So I'll do that quickly tonight, then we'll finish the rest possibly tomorrow or Monday. So today's Saturday. Okay. Okay, so we're going to carry along with the Pilar jacket by Maison Fauve. So this is the jacket so far. We've now got the collar on, we've done the buttonholes, the front button placket. I just decided to do this zigzag top stitching down the front, as we said, and then we've joined the side seams, there, overlocked them, and then pressed them towards the back. So that's so far. Now we need to do just excuse the muslin on Dolly there, it's just something else I'm working on. So that's the jacket there. So the next piece we need to do is the band at the bottom. Okay, so we're going to, that's our piece here, which we've interfaced. I've just interfaced half along there because it's quite a robust fabric I'm using. So it just wants us to press under along both edges about 1 centimetre along both edges, along the edge there. Okay, and then we're going to turn that, I'll angle the camera down in a minute when I've done this bit, but it wants us to turn that to that way, and then with some pins, which I haven't got, it just wants us to pin that in place there. Okay, and then it wants us to stitch along there and down there. Okay, on both ends. So I'll do the same with that end. So it's right sides together of your fabric, and then pin that in place there. Okay, so it wants us to stitch up there, along there and down there with our centimetre seam allowance, and then we're going to snip it where we need to at the tip here. So trim the seam allowance, snip the corners off the top there, turn it in the right way and press it, and then we're going to attach it to the bottom, to the waistband piece of the jacket here. So I'll do that, all right, and then I'll angle the camera down so you can see what we're doing from then on. Okay. So we've top stitched it. So we've stitched the seam, then overlocked it, and then press stitched towards the front sleeve, which is the bigger section of the sleeve, okay, and then top stitched down down the sleeve there, okay, just to where this placket piece, so just to where you'd stitched your seam allowance, just to there, top stitch along just to there. Okay, so then we're going to stitch the next we're going to stitch the placket piece in place here. So as I say, we've stitched along there just down to where the placket piece is, and then the front sleeve piece, we want to show it this way round. Front sleeve piece, we want to press under or press over. Let me show you that way. Press over all the way down, so it's even all the way down. Okay, like so. All right, and then we want to press under 0.5 of a centimetre just to neaten that edge. All right, and then from the right side, so from this side, we're going to top stitch roughly where we finished there, just down to the bottom. All right, and then the other side, we just want to turn over so the back sleeve, as they call it, you want to press under 0.5 of a centimetre to the wrong side, and then again about another 0.5 of a centimetre, so that it lines up with your notch at the bottom there. Okay, so it lines up there, and then again we're going to top stitch up there like we have done on this one. Okay, so I've top stitched those in place along the bottom there and along the top there, and then it wants you to secure these two pieces of your placket sleeve together at the seam allowance here. Okay, so it just wants you to stitch over the horizontal line just across where those seams join. I've just decided, I've back stitched a few times as well just to make sure it's nice and secure, and I've just decided to put 2 stitch lines in there just to make sure that that's nice and secure there. That's a high point of stress, as they call it. That's why they want it reinforced well, so that's where that's going to take some wear and tear. So I've just decided to do 2 rows of top stitching across horizontally just to secure that in place. So I'll do the other one on there in a moment. So next it's the cuff pieces. So mine, as I say, mine are slightly different. The pattern pieces, you'd have 1 piece solid colour, but I've decided to do half and half. So I've decided to do half in my contrast fabric that I've used underneath the collar as well, and for my pockets, can't see there. So I've decided to put that on the underneath of my collar as well, and also in my inside of my pockets as well. So the next, I've joined those together. So all I did to do that was basically you just fold your piece in half, or half your piece, so it actually has a fold line marked on there anyway. Okay, so I just added my centimetre seam allowance to it and then folded it up like so. Okay, and that's the piece I cut out, and then I joined the 2 pieces together like so, and press the seam allowance open and then interface them. Okay, so that's how I've done those. So now it wants us to fold those over like so, first of all, yep, and then it wants us to join both ends. So yeah, it wants us to, shall I put those in? It wants us to stitch along and down there, so to create the V there. Oh, we do need to turn up like we did on the other bit as well, so let me just pin this in place. Like so. Okay, and it does want us, so we also need to turn up a centimetre along the edge there. So turn up a centimetre along that edge, and also the same along that edge. Okay, so both of those bottom edges of your cuff just need to be turned up a centimetre. Okay, so I'm going to press that first, and then I'm going to stitch both those ends, so down that side and also along that side, on both of those, and then we can join it to the sleeve. Okay. So I've sewn the sleeves in, and I'll show you a couple of optional extras that I did just to customise it a bit, but I'll just show you the buttonholes first as I've got it here placed out. So I just put some fray stop on, fray check to start with, just along the inside, just along the middle of your buttonhole. It'll dry out roughly the same colour. It might darken it slightly. It didn't on my, didn't on these, so I don't expect it will. So it shouldn't do once it's dried. And then you just place, so you've got a little, with mine, I tend to use the little chisel as preference, especially something like this on a twill, rather than your seam ripper. And then you just press down in the middle of your buttonhole like that, just to break through. Okay. So I'm going to leave those to dry, leave the fray stop to dry. So I've done all of those on my cuffs and on the tabs at the back here. So that's all those done, all the buttonholes done. A couple of optional extras. I did decide to press the sleeve seam up towards the jacket, and then top stitch around the sleeve head, which I've done before on a denim jacket. So I decided to do it on this one. And then the other thing, I decided to top stitch the facing down. I could have stitched in the ditch along there, but actually pinning it in place, this bit was still sort of flapping out of it. So I pinned it in place. I stitched around with a basting stitch on my machine, just in ordinary thread, around the top here, just around this piece here. And then from the right side, that gave me a guide where to stitch with my top stitch around the back. So I decided to do that on the back piece, like so. Okay. And the other thing I just decided to do is just put a little label on the bottom waistband piece of my jacket, just saying one of a kind, as it is with all our makes, which is lovely. So you can sort of customise, you know, to make things your own, which I think is all the enjoyment of sewing, really. So I'm going to go and sew those buttons on. Now, to mark the buttons, you just need to get them lined up nice and equal. So place them like that. Once I get it sat right, make sure you get your two pieces, or your lapel pieces are matching up there, and your pieces are matching at the bottom. Okay, and then I will get a marker pen. Here we are. So a heat erasable pen, and then just mark on where I want them to be. So that's about there. To make sure that's set right there. Right there. One at the top. There. Okay, so you've marked through your buttonholes, so I've just got the placements there. I'll then just measure to make sure they are all roughly in the right place, roughly equal. Just check that one. It does differ slightly. Right, let's have a look at that. So that one's 7. That one's 7. So this one's out a wee bit too far. 7. Just want it in a bit there. Okay. I'll put a 4 of those. And then we just need to mark on here as well, so just make a little mark into there and again in there. Just roughly the same down. Yep, okay, and then on the cuffs, I might try them on in a minute, actually, I'll do that. And then here, and there, and one there. You do have the option if you want to put an extra button on, just so that you can tighten it if you want, so you could put a couple of buttons on the bottom piece, which I've seen done in jackets before, but I know mine I probably won't want to tighten it, so I think I'll just do the one. Just try the sleeve cuff on and just make sure where I want my that's roughly right about there. Just fold that over, make sure I've got that in the right place. Yeah, looks about right. Yep. That's fine. And then I'll measure that to make sure I've got the same on the other cuff. So that's the tape measure the right way round. 1.4. 1.4. 1.4. So that's 1.4. Just make sure I've got that lined up at the right. Slightly off there, I think. There we go. So it's the upper one of that. So it's there. Okay, so I'm going to go and sew those buttons on with a cup of tea, I expect, and I will come and show you when the jacket's finished. So that's the Pilar jacket finished. I'll just raise the camera up a bit, actually. I can talk to you properly. Oh, sorry. It won't raise up a bit. Oh. Oops. Sorry, you're a bit seasick now, aren't you? Oh. See if I can edit that out. Oh, right. Oh, still too low. I have to crouch down. Right, so this is the Pilar jacket all finished. So yeah, pleased with that. So I'm going to get some pictures in a minute of me not crouched down, so wearing it, so I'll add them on to the end of the video, and hopefully that's given you a little bit of inspiration to make your own Pilar jacket. It's a really nice jacket with some subtle details and changes to a denim jacket. So yeah, really nice, made out of a cotton twill. You can make it out of all sorts. You can make it out of a jacquard, all different fabrics. So yeah, I'll get my husband to do some pictures because I'm not very good at selfies, and add that onto the end of the video and upload it. Okay, thanks then. Bye bye.